What's up, gang? It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And tonight we're talking about Harry Potter. What? Harry Potter coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Yes, it's there is a line from Harry Potter where Mr. Olivander, the wand creator, says to Harry Potter, "The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter." Yes, well, I love that because there is the wand in wizardry, I guess, is this thing that is very personal, right? That the wand is very personal to the wizard, and it is this thing that wizards use to help them create things, right? To help them do more powerful things. Well, I want to borrow that saying, and I want to change wand to wound. The wound chooses the wizard, right? Or the wound chooses you. In our childhood, we all experience a wound. It's part of, it's part of the grand design of this thing, right? This life school we get to live for 80 to 100 years. Like this life school we get to go through, we are blessed with or privileged with a wound. We all get a wound as a child. And when we get this wound as a child, we're not conscious enough to know to select it. We don't choose the wound. We're not like, I think out of all of the wounds I'd like to experience, betrayal is the wound I'd like to have, right? We just go through life, and in our innocence, we experience something that goes against what we are used to, and it wounds us. And in that wound, we respond through different means. We might develop some strengths in response to the wound. We might develop some defense mechanisms in response to the wound. But whatever happens, we become who we are because of that wound. In other words, that wound develops our skills, our mindsets, etc. Now, there's a part where or a point in our life where the wound stops serving us, or where we're no longer wanting to live under the thumb of the wound. We're no longer defined by the wound. And what happens in our wizardry, if we can say that, is we learn how to lead others who are experiencing the same wound. In other words, we transcend the wound. We move beyond it, and we actually see we see its role, that it doesn't define us, but we see its role in our development. We see its role in our development and how it brought us to this point. And now we actually can see how to use the skills and perspectives we've gained from that wound to guide and lead others who are still stuck back in that wound. So if we come back to Harry Potter, where Olivander says, "The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter," what I would say to you is that the wound chooses the wizard, whoever you are. You, in your life, had a wound. And if you can name it, it could be helpful. It might help you see why you developed the skill sets and mindsets, the offense and defense in life that you developed. For me specifically, I have a betrayal wound, and I have a belonging wound. I have two wounds. One is around betrayal in numerous places in my life, in my early life and my early adult life, having wounds that were from betrayal. And those distinctly shaped me, how I see the world, how I think of you as a stranger, or how I think of you as an advocate or friend. A lot of it is filtered through this wound of betrayal. Also, my wound of belonging, right? Like to never feel like I really belonged was a thing for me. I never felt like I fit. And so I had a wound around belonging. You also have a wound or two that have shaped the decisions you've made, the career choices you've made, the spouse or life partner you chose. There are things that you have brought into your life because of the influence of the wound. The good news about the wound is that it was actually required. We actually needed the wound in order to develop our gifts that for the world, how we want to serve the world. You can't, I would say anybody who is tuned in, right, is present to purpose, that you want purpose. You want to influence and help and inspire others to their greatest purpose. And that is a part of your purpose. And a lot of that comes from, or comes in response to who you really are. But in order for you to lead others into that, you had to have this thing that would cause you to go and learn, go and develop yourself so that you could lead others. The reason I'm able, not just willing, but able to lead others in the shadows of things is because I've become familiar with my own shadow and the wounding that happened. And in that, I can actually see where people get stuck because I'm present to what's got me stuck. The wound prepared me to lead others in this conversation of marketing. And your wound prepared you to lead others in whatever thing you feel called to lead them in. But what can happen is that you could spend a life trying to put the wound behind you. You could spend a lifetime trying to outrun the wound, trying to rise above the wound. And what was a game changer for me was actually befriending it, to actually honor it, to see it as something that was there to help and guide me, not something that was there to hurt me. It hurt. Yes, it hurt. Of course it hurt. Taking a sliver out of your finger can hurt. Getting a shot can hurt. Getting circumcised could hurt. My son was crying his head off at an early age, but he doesn't remember that. But that was right. That wasn't there to hurt him. That was there to help them. Your wounding was there. It chose you, and it was there to help you in what you're here to do in the world. And if you can embrace that, if you can look it in the face and say, I see the divineness in the role it has played in what it is I feel in my soul to do, then what happens is you can actually start to use the energy of it. You can actually, right, like using the energy of the wand, you can use the energy of the wound to actually move things that are bigger than you. So I'm curious, I don't know, we're going somewhat abstract tonight, but what I want to, you don't have to tell me in the comments and you don't have to private message me, but I am curious for you to explore. Can you name what the wounding was? Is there a common thread? Can you give it a name like betrayal or belonging? Where do you feel wounded? Can you name it? And if you can name it, can you see how a lot of your life had been in a reaction to running away from it, trying to avoid it? And in the running away and avoiding of it, you developed skill sets that actually now can serve you in helping others navigate that same wound who are stuck in that wound. It has actually prepared you to lead your people for the purpose you feel stirring in your soul. So I'll leave you with that tonight. I'll leave you with that. What I want you to know in business is that when you start to market from this place, when you start to market from the place of the wound, this is what has people stop and realize that you're not just a trickster, but that you are actually speaking from a different place. And this is what has people pay attention. They're like, whoa, you're not trying to trick me here. You're actually speaking from a very deep place. And it's something about it is connecting with me at a very deep level. Doesn't mean every post you have to talk about wounding and I was betrayed here and I didn't belong there and whatever. But there is an essence to it, to all of it, to the way that you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you talk about things that is rooted in you having befriended the wound and being able to talk about important things in life that move others forward. So if you are in business and you're looking for, how do I begin to connect with more people? What I want you to do is begin to look at the wound and what it taught you, and then begin to embrace it and befriend it, because it was there to actually give you power, to provide you with power, the power to lead, and the power to lead others who have the same wound. They have the same wound. Much of my tribe have the wound of belonging and betrayal. They were betrayed by people, or they never felt like they belonged. And those two wounds are what have them feel lost in business. They don't trust other people because they've been betrayed. So, they do a lot of do-it-yourself courses. They read a lot of books. They'll jump in on a lot of webinars, but they very rarely go all in with someone because they don't trust people. Those are my people. And yet there's something about them that wants to contribute to others. And so there's this weird thing, right? This dynamic between, I don't trust leaders or people who feel like they're trying to sell me something, but I really have a heart to lead others and help them. Right? Isn't that funny? Like, do you see the paradox there? And so when you can befriend the wound, it actually allows you to step beyond the limits that it has constrained you to. And now you can actually learn from others who have gone before you, while also opening up the work you're here to do in the world. The other wound my people share is belonging. Like, a lot of my people feel like they don't belong. They're a square peg in a round hole, and everything that people tell them to do doesn't fit for them. And I have lived that in different ways throughout my life. This sense of I don't belong. I didn't belong in my career as a real estate agent. I didn't feel like I belonged as a CEO because I was different than all the other ones. I felt like I was always being compared to other CEOs across the industry. In high school, I never fit a particular group. And so a lot of my people are in business trying to find their voice and trying to figure out how it works. And they've tried a lot of people's stuff on, but nothing fits because they don't belong. They don't belong to any one group. And no one teacher seems to ever fit their life experience. And that's coming from this belonging wound, that they don't belong. So ultimately, what I want you to know is that as you start to befriend the wound, and you can name it and then identify it and then befriend it, what happens is you start to be able to lead from a deeper place where others can tell that you are for real and that you are different than all the rest. And that is the power of the wound, right? Just like wizards who have a wand that can do more with a wand than without. You having a wound now and identifying it and using it, befriending it and being able to use it, you now can use it in a way that helps others, okay? The wound chooses the wizard, okay? So here's to you, gang. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode. Until tomorrow, here's to you finding and befriending the wound so that it can actually help you lead others in your important work. See you tomorrow.